I grew up in a big city, Madrid, Spain. In here, I started gardening. So I saw myself fighting constantly with squirrels. Animals who were digging holes in my soil and destroying all my seedlings? What the heck? So I remember looking up at the sky and asking, why do you have to invent squirrels? Well, I finally got the answer. Took me years, I'm a little slow, I have to admit it. But I got the answer and I want to share it with you today. I'm a journalist. I was hosting a radio morning talk show in my country. We had over 1 million listeners every day. I had a decent job, I was happy. And one day I packed it in and moved to New York. Why? My wife is from New York, duh. Love is the boat, we're the passengers, my friends. So here I was, and my first shock was to realize that the New York I moved into didn't have any yellow cabs. No tall buildings, no Woody Allen, I panicked. You know, the distance doesn't allow you to appreciate the details. From Europe, New York is Manhattan, period. I guess if you go to the moon, Europe and America, two completely different entities, will look pretty much the same. The farther you move from a person, the less you can distinguish the wrinkles that make a face unique. So silly me, I landed in New York, in Rhinebeck, New York. A place where there were more trees than buildings, more creatures than human beings, the jungle. To boot, everybody in Rhinebeck was asking me, what do you do? What do? I just got here. So to remove that anxiety, I decided to write a script based on the biography of a cleaning lady, Candida. Candida was a very special person in my life. She was my very own Mary Poppins. Except instead of flying in an umbrella, she was coming from the outskirts on a subway every day. One of those ladies who sacrificed their whole life, working hard from sunup to sundown, so their children will know what hope means. And I thought it was a good idea to say that, because actually Candida in a country like America, made out of immigrants, was very well understood. In fact, my friend John Graziano confessed to me that Candida fit 100% the description of his Italian grandmother. The family joke at John's house growing up was that if you wake up at midnight to go to the bathroom, Grandma Graziano would have already made your bed by the time you got back. So to write the script, I needed to isolate myself, to avoid people, but guess what? In America, you can't. I mean, in Spain, if you go on the street and you meet with somebody who you vaguely know, instead of saying hola, hello, you would say goodbye, adios, to make sure that that person won't stop. Can you imagine? I mean, what can you possibly talk about? So you even point by your nose, adios, that's the way out. But in the Hudson Valley, if you happen to make eye contact with an unknown soul, and you say, how are you doing? That person would actually stop and would let you know the whole answer, which might even include the last visit to the doctor to check on a varicose vein. Europe is different. Once I worked in London with Joe Hambrook, the BBC man who created the English segments for Sesame Street. And Joe was living in Greenwich, and every morning at 5 o'clock, he was leaving his house to get into the train to commute to the city. And every morning at the same time, his neighbor from across the street was leaving the house. So at 5 o'clock every morning, they look at each other and they say, good day, and they parted ways. So years later, Joe Hambrook gets a sabbatical year, and he rents a house in Tuscany, Italy. He's walking down the village, and he sees a man approaching from the opposite distance. That man looks actually familiar. That man is actually his neighbor from Greenwich. They get close, they look at each other, and they say, good day, and they part ways. I said, Joe, why did you ask that guy what he was doing in Italy? He said, well, I couldn't because we weren't properly introduced. Well, not in America. America caught me out of guard. I felt myself meeting all sorts of people, listening to all sorts of stories, and to my surprise, those villagers, those people from the jungle, they weren't only talking about cows and horses. Of course some did, thank God. I mean, you need farmers if you want to have the beautiful meadows that we have here too. So God bless the farmers. But those people were telling me also stories about the steam system in New York City, running barefoot in Red Hook, raising buffalo, American bison in Texas, and how they did design the computer track system that helped to put a man on the moon. Wow! I was so fascinated that I found myself procrastinating my writing job and actually making up excuse to go out of the house daily and bump into somebody new. So I was supposed to be missing the sophistication of a big city 100 miles from Manhattan. I was supposed to be angry for not being able to concentrate on my writing project. And instead of that, I found myself experiencing a sense of happiness that I couldn't really figure out where it was coming from. So to find out, I decided to write a book about my personal experience in the Hudson Valley. At first I thought that my happiness was probably coming from the landscape. You know, this place is almost too beautiful. I mean, the river, the Catskills, the creatures. America has a nature that is overwhelming. But then, I mean, we're animals. So I thought, you know, coping daily with nature, feeling that we're part of the chain of life, that certainly makes us to feel upbeat. But then I thought, you know, even in Madrid, we don't have a bear in our front yard. Even we don't even have a front yard. We have the markets. Yes, the markets, those temple of flavors. The daily experience of going shopping to the markets is our European way of contact with nature. In the markets, in those places, we Europeans have actually the privilege of learning that a shrimp comes with a head. So, if nature wasn't the reason, what was it? So I keep writing. And in writing, I realized that actually my happiness wasn't coming from the story itself. It was coming from the amazing variety of characters that I was meeting. Because I was paying attention, listening carefully, the diversity of America was being shown to me. Because I was getting closer to people, I could distinguish the wrinkles that make their faces unique. So yes, I found myself embracing diversity and enjoying it. You know, in my hometown, we all men look more or less like a cheap version of Antonio Banderas. And we all have similar meals in the night of December 24th, not in America. Diversity is the reason why America will always surprise you. Diversity is the reason why in America you will always have an opportunity to do something new every day. Diversity is what made me happy, and diversity is what makes you happy. And then something clicked on my mind. Years ago, I had a scholarship at Fulbright to study film at USC in California. Great teachers, don't get me wrong. But I didn't think then that Woody Omens, the cinematographer who taught me how to lead a set, was more technologically savvy than Josep Civit, the cinematographer from Barcelona, who ended up shooting the movie Candida. So if technology wasn't the answer, why were American drama, television, comedy, movies thriving all over the planet? Well, because American screenwriters have a larger cast of characters to copy from. So their stories are fuller of surprises, less predictable. So in writing my book, I realized that when you enjoy diversity, when you look at people without prejudice, your life suddenly is more interesting, and guess what? Much more fun. All you have to do is say hello and listen. I met a guy, a CEO of a big company, I have a meeting with him, and he was in a wheelchair. So we end the meeting, I didn't know how to say goodbye. Should I or shouldn't I shake his hand? And I said, well, I better not, because if I do that, I'm going to remind him of his problem, and I'm going to make him feel uncomfortable. So out of sheer confusion, what did I do? I gave him a kiss in his forehead. So the guy looked at me and said, are you going to attack me in bed and tell me a story too? I'm 50, man, come on. So I explained the problem and said, of course you shake my hand. I can, but I expect you to be polite and do so. And in doing so, you're going to make me feel like a man instead of a weirdo. How stupid was I? So that's why I realized that this guy wasn't a man in a wheelchair. He was a man who happened to be in a wheelchair. So next time, I invite you next time you meet somebody in a wheelchair to forget about the wheelchair and focus on the person. Next time you meet somebody with a thick accent, I invite you to forget about the accent and ask him instead of, what do you do? How are you doing? And you'll be happily surprised. You know, if I mention the name of Mark Knopfler, the phenomenal guitar player, the leader of the band Dire Straits, almost everybody in this audience are going to think of Mark as a musician. But Mark is more than that. He's a father, and he was a kid too. So he comes to my show, Gomaespuma, once to promote the last album, Sailing to Philadelphia, and I look at the guy and say, so I guess you like playing guitar, huh? And he told me that growing up in Glasgow, Scotland, every day he was going to school, being a kid. And he was passing by a music store with a phenomenal window, and in that window, there was an electrical red guitar, a Fender. And every single Christmas, he was writing a letter to Father Christmas asking for that guitar. And every single Christmas, Father Christmas didn't bring him the guitar. So by the time he lost hope, one Christmas, he got the guitar. And he understood by then the amazing financial effort made to purchase that guitar, that he didn't dare to tell his parents that an electric guitar doesn't work without an amplifier. So Mark Knopfler has to learn how to play electric guitar without electricity, pinching those chords so hard to make sure that he could make some sound and realize if he was in tune. So, and that's why he made him to create a style, an amazing style that is worldwide known. So then I asked him if he had kids, and if those kids are writing letters to Father Christmas. And he posed that question. Okay, now that I'm in a position that I can give my kids anything I want, should I or shouldn't I? Because maybe I am who I am because I have to overcome the reality of coming from nothing. Isn't that a question that goes straight forward to the core of parenting? We're not linear. You know, we are full of surprises. A singer can tell you a lesson about parenting. A father can teach you about music. Everybody's biography is interesting. Everybody's life or biography here is as interesting as Mother Teresa's or Gandhi. Why? Because a biography is not about facts. It's not about what have you done. It's about how do you feel while doing whatever you're doing. It's about internal emotions. Isn't that what makes us humans? So here I am today to invite you that anytime you have to make a decision, think about if that decision is going to respect diversity. Don't forget that diversity is what makes me happy, is what makes you happy. I invite you to say no anytime somebody wants to put a lock at the borders of America. Because if you're preventing diversity from happening, you're taking away, little by little, the very essence of this country, the pursuit of happiness. And then America will be a perfect, boring place. So today, when I'm gardening, I look up at the sky and say, thank you, Lord, thank you, Lady, Energy, whoever you are, for creating the squirrels. You know, you have conceived the walnut tree with a big seed. A seed so big that we need some creatures with patience to dig a hole and bury them. So one day, that seed will become a tall tree, one of the tall trees that make the Hudson Valley the diverse and unique place that is in the world. Thank you.